January evening. Thanks for bearing with us and thanks for being here. Call to order the regular meeting of the Cheshire Town Council for Tuesday, January 16th. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please? Here.
Jim James. Here. Tina Allard. Here. Patricia Kramer. Here. Deanna Pearson. Here. Tim Slocum. Here. Don Walsh. Here. Greg Wolf. Here. And David Belver.
Here.
Thank you. Please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So because of the weather this evening, we're moving a couple things around. We will do 3A on the agenda, which is the recognition of our town council members, John Milone, Sandy Pavano, Sylvia Nichols, and David Barowie. We will move that to the February meeting. Likewise, we will do 3C, the proclamation for the Cheshire High School hockey team, their recognition of their 50th season in existence. We will do that at the February meeting as well. The one that I do want to do now, however, is one that is extremely special to all of us, and that is the proclamation and recognition of the 2023 Connie Wallace Employee of the Year and recipient Steve Livornia. In typical Employee of the Year fashion, Steve has been out plowing the roads since, I'm told, 1 a.m. So not plowing, obviously, but putting down some salt mixture to pre-prep the roads. So Steve will not be here, but we are going to recognize him anyway and offer our thanks to Steve and as well as our congratulations. Whereas the town of Cheshire annually recognizes the Connie Wallace Employee of the Year, selected by nominations and ballots of fellow employees and presented to an employee who goes above and beyond. And whereas the 20th annual Employee of the Year award has been presented to Steve Livornia, building maintenance crew leader, and whereas Steve Livornia has been employed with the town 2000, and whereas he was promoted to building in 2023, since which time above and beyond to represent and provide excellence to every department, whereas he successfully took on a variety of challenges while maintaining a positive, hardworking attitude, including the large task of readying 19 Wallingford Road for the new Human Services Department. Therefore, I, Peter J. Talbot, Mayor and Chairperson of the Town Council, on behalf of the Town Council and all the citizens of Cheshire, do hereby recognize and congratulate Steve Livornia for this well-deserved award and offer our sincere appreciation for his exemplary service to the town. Dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, the 16th day of 2024. Steve, I hope you're not on YouTube, and I hope you're getting some well-deserved rest, and we would certainly welcome you to attend in person and receive the congratulations of the council in person. But I think it would be appropriate if we could have our town manager, Sean Kimball, say a few words about the work that Steve has done beyond what I just read here tonight.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. And as you said, there's no one I can think of more deserving than Steve. He did step into the building maintenance crew leader role this last year. had worked in that division for many, many years, over his 24 years in the town. But he really has taken it to a new level. And I know it was referenced in the proclamation, but 19 Wallingford Road was not on anyone's immediate plans when they began, outlining the work for the year. And Steve took on that project. I'm fairly sure he was nominated by the Human Services Director. They were just blown away at how incredible he and the entire team that worked on readying that space for their use. I think anyone who's toured the building, and if you haven't, let me know, and I'm happy to take you through, will be amazed at how really perfect it has all come out for their needs and their use. What a great asset to the town and for residents using the services of the Human Services Department. And again, the professionalism that he consistently displays, his his kind demeanor, and his approach to any problem, his can-do attitude, it's really second to none. So he's always someone I enjoy interacting with, and someone you can count on. And it doesn't get much better for someone in the role that he plays and serves for the town. So we thank him for his years of service and congratulate him on behalf of the entire town, and the recognition of all of his fellow employees. Well deserved. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And thank you, Steve. We have in our packets tonight the quarterly, the second quarter consent calendar donations for you to peruse at your convenience, which brings us to item 3E, public comments. If anybody would like to address the council, now is the time to do so.
Tucker Deming, 230 Oregon Road. Well, tonight's tableau, the weather, is appropriate for this discussion I'd like to start upon right now. The rating agencies that have been assigned to analyzing the reliability of our grid, FERC, NERC, issued a report this past November about an incident that happened the previous year. They took their time with the report. But the incident happened on December 22nd to 28th. And it was Storm Elliott. And Elliott drove our temperatures throughout the whole area from Pennsylvania to New England, which is our concern, to drastic low temperatures. And if that temperature had remained for another few hours, New York City would have lost their gas pressure, because if the pumps from Pennsylvania have to move that gas into the New York area and to our area also. We have other sources of energy, but New York would have lost their gas pressure. Hey, so what? So next day it warmed up and they can get gas pressure back. No, not so easy. So because once the gas pressure is lost, all of the appliances, the heating units that use gas have to be inspected because they have pilot lights. They have to be turned off, turned on, inspected. So what we're talking about here is the mass evacuation of New York City. Now, everyone I've talked to in the last year about this knows nothing about this. I think it would be very helpful to all our understandings if you did a little research about Storm Elliott, because we're in the same situation. It hasn't improved. What's happened is we've been forced to eliminate our base load energy supplies, coal, nuclear, and gas. So by doing that, we have eliminated the storage of fuel. The gas is not the same as the coal and nuclear because they can't store it. As they say, it's a time needed supply. So I think we should be careful about how we select our political leaders making these decisions, because engineers aren't. Engineers are going along with the flow, but they're putting us all in great jeopardy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deming. Anyone else?
Guy Darter, 474 Maple Avenue. The last meeting of the public safety meeting was my last time. I'm up for renewal, or however you want to put it. And there's three things that we as a commission have not, I think still need to be considered. The first one is a couple of years ago, we did a safety study, and two of the big parts of the safety study was sidewalks and safety of speeding and people on the roads. And the committee put together a quite extensive, with a lot of help from a lot of people in town hall, a protocol for how to apply to have sidewalks put on your street. That has never come, I believe, to the town council, or been approved or disapproved. I think you should relook at that. The second thing is we suggested to do a town-wide traffic study. I know it's expensive, but I believe it's important for the town so we can understand. I know the last council, I believe, turned it down. I'd like you to reconsider that study, to fund it and make it, I think it does a lot for the town. I think there's a lot of things we can do that are very inexpensive to make it easier for bikers, for walkers to be in this town and connect everything. And the third one is something we just brought to the town council in a letter, I believe last week or a couple of weeks ago. And that is the problem of the retirement package for our police officers. This came from, I brought it to the committee back in October, only because I have an employee who wants to be a police officer. And of course, I recommended go to Cheshire. And he said, absolutely not, because the pension plan is so bad compared to the rest of the state that why would I go there when I can get a better pension someplace else? And I think the chief of police sent a letter back in July about it. And I think it's something you really need to consider. So I think those are three things that are left, what I would call on the table, that I think the new council should look at and at least study and try to make sense of. I'd like to thank for my time being there. And I know at some point you guys will vote for new members of the committees, and I hope you reconsider me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darter. Anyone else? Mr. Shrum, I had seen you like kind of get up and
Dave Shrum, 369 Sir Walter Drive. Mr. Chairman, I wasn't going to say anything, but since you kind of invited me, I guess I will. You received a letter recently from the chairwoman of the Environmental Commission, and I don't know if you've had a chance to read it yet, but she was going to be here tonight, except for the weather, to read that letter. But to urge you to get on with building the walk bridge across the Mill River down on the Fenn Road property that the town bought in 2020. And the reason for that is a public safety issue. The most popular hiking area in Cheshire, arguably, is the Dean Dominicus property down the south end of town, and the parking for that trailhead is extremely dangerous. There is no parking lot. You have to pull over on the side of the road. It's very hilly. It's a tough spot. And one of the reasons for buying the Fenn Road property was for safe parking for that very, very large area of open space. So in the interest of frugality, it doesn't have to be a great bridge. It doesn't have to be the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, but just a simple walk bridge across that river, which would open up an awful lot of open space for people who enjoy walking there. So I believe you have some extra funds. I'm not quite sure, are they ARPA or COVID or what they are, but if you have some extra funds, you might want to put 25 or 50,000 or whatever it's going to cost towards something like that, because if it goes into the capital budget process, who knows where it'll end up. Okay.
thank you, Mr. Shrum. Appreciate it. The council just recently received, in fact, it may have been today that we received the letter from Ms. Schnitzer, and it will be read into the record as part of council communications letters to the council. So That will be read into the record in a little bit. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on with the agenda. Item number 4 is the approval of minutes, the minutes of the December 12th, 2023 and January 9th, 2024 town council meetings. I'll accept a motion. And a second from Ms. Pearson. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, although I was not at the 9th meeting, I did watch it, so I will be voting.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. All in favor? Item passes unanimously. The consent calendar, Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 011624-1, consent calendar for January 16, 2024. Be it resolved that the town council approves the consent calendar for January 16, 2024 as follows.
Thank you, Mr. Slocum, for the second. All in favor? Passes unanimously. And did I skip Mr. Martelli? Okay, you are later then. Okay. Not too much later though, Andrew. Just wanted to make sure. Items removed from consent calendar. There are none. Old business, which brings us to our school building committee update. Mr. Gussenberg, chair of the committee. Thank you for coming out on this lovely evening.
It's nice that winter has finally come to Connecticut. Not a lot to report. Since we saw you last, the holidays came, so we only had one meeting in that time. We are still on schedule. Our design development plans for the north end came in on Friday. I was looking at them today. There's about 400 plus drawings and about 2,000 pages of narrative. So obviously I didn't fully look at them, but I did, begin to look through them. The Norton plans are due to us on January 24th, and then both of those sets will be sent to our estimators. We're going to keep our fingers crossed at that point that they come through saying that we're right on target. Obviously, if it comes through saying that we're over budget, we'll have to take a look at some changes that may need to be made. We're in the process of presenting plans for the North End School and Norton to the Inland Wetlands Commission. The North End School was approved by Inland Wetlands, I think it was last week, and Norton is scheduled for January 16th. We're scheduled to present plans for the North End School and Norton to Planning and Zoning. North End's first hearing is tentatively scheduled for January 22nd and Norton for February 12th. So we're moving right along there. We have been looking at some grant opportunities, and I wanted to just bring that to the council and make you aware. As you know, we have already applied for a grant through Eversource, and that grant hopefully will get us about $1 million. Doesn't cost us anything because the cost of preparing that was built into the contract with Tecton. So the engineer that's doing the work there, along with the Eversource people, will take care of all of that. We don't get that until the project is complete, and Eversource then looks at the energy efficiency of our systems and concludes that we have met the goals that we've agreed to. And then we should be seeing a check of about $500,000 for each of the two schools that'll come back to the town. At the same time, we started to look into the Inflation Reduction Act. That's a federal grant. And with anything that comes from the federal government, there's always some confusion and some complexity. So we had asked Rich Sitnick, who is our project manager from Arcadis, to look into this. It's taken him several months and multiple calls and research to go through the process of trying to figure out exactly how one goes about applying for energy reduction grants through the Inflation Reduction Act. He and Vin Massiana finally were able to get together with CLA Accountants, who are one of the accountant firms that works with our school system. And they've gone through the process by which the town would complete an application and could, according to them, receive a minimum of about $1 million back. The negative side of that is that we probably would need to hire an accounting firm to go through the process of doing the application and all of the background, because there's some tax implications. It's done as a tax credit, but obviously taxes aren't something you can apply directly to a town, so is a different process that's used there. And just to make you aware, the CLA accountants did estimate that their fees would run anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 to go ahead and do that process. To get back what appears to be $1 million plus. The committee has just begun talking about it. Obviously, it's not something that was originally within our budget and probably would not accrue anything back to the building committee. It would come back to the town. So I think we are in further conversations as to how we want to proceed there. So I just wanted to make the town council aware, and at some point in time, we may want to sit down and have a conversation about how we should proceed. And that's about all I had this evening, but I'm more than glad to answer any questions that people may have.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate it. Questions for Mr. Gussenberg? Mr. Veliber.
Thank you. So question, obviously they were supposed to go to planning and zoning, that got delayed. I think they were supposed to be at the last planning and zoning meeting, got delayed. So just question for you, how do you think it's going at the planning and zoning level? My understanding is that there's been some disputes between the building, the architects and our consultants and the planning and zoning commission, as far as that there's been questions asked that haven't been answered by them in advance of the planning and zoning commission meeting. And I'm just curious, how do you think that's going between them?
I wouldn't say disputes. I think that there was some miscommunication. The last meeting that we were supposed to have was delayed because there hadn't been proper notice to the people who lived in the immediate area. We sat down I can't remember now, the days flow together. Might have been last Thursday. It was Thursday, with members from all of the various town agencies, with our architectural firms, and walk through a number of different items along with communication process to make sure that everything was online. There were several different items that were noted and listed. There were some discussion about communication where people had said we never received certain things, but others said we gave you that, we sent that, and we said, let's not go there. Here's the process. Here's what we're doing now. I think we're in really good shape right now, and we'll be coming up in the next week or so.
Okay.
And I think that most of the questions and issues that have been raised by various town agencies have been either taken care of already or are in the process of being handled before we get to the P&Z meeting.
Okay, great. Because I'd heard there were some issues as far as communication as to questions that P&Z was looking for that hadn't been addressed yet by the consultants. So obviously want to make sure, because we have a very strict timeline to keep this thing moving forward.
Exactly.
And obviously those delays, if there are any, obviously cut into that time frame.
And we're all on the same team. It's, town of Cheshire coming looking for some work within the town of Cheshire. But we want to make sure everything is done and done properly. Our architectural people will make sure that we meet all of the requirements.
Mr. Jinks.
Thank you. Hey, Rich, the $1 million grant you referred to from the federal government, was that for anything in particular? Or was that
It's
just,
for energy.
oh, it is for energy?
It's,
Okay.
it's built within the Inflation Reduction Act, and it's specifically for energy reduction processes. So by using the geothermal system, the hybrid geothermal system, along with some of the other equipment, there are some requirements that are within that in terms of certain equipment has to be made in America versus elsewhere. That's why I say there's within federal regulations, there are often some strings that are tied to it. And that's why we would need some support to do that. But it's all tied to our energy systems.
Okay, thank you.
Rich, thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you very much. I'm
We
up
will,
in wetlands.
And we'll see you in February.
All right, thank you very much.
Update on Bartlam Park South, Mr. Kimball.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really nothing to report from last meeting. Again, it's a relatively slow time in the construction world. We are having some ongoing meetings and discussions around final design and any change orders with respect to both the restroom and the band shell. But we should know more. We didn't have a on-site meeting in January. Usually there's one at the beginning, first Wednesday of every month. So I should have more to report after the February meeting. But otherwise, things are on track.
Questions concerning Bartlam Park South, Mr. Villeber.
So just a quick question. Obviously, we've had a lot of pretty heavy rain and wind everything's holding up okay over there? Everything's doing well?
Yeah, everything is functioning as it's supposed to with the stormwater detention basins and everything. So I think it's been a lot of rain. It's been definitely tested. But
I was
it's
going to say, if it's
performing
it's getting
as expected. And
pretty
yeah,
good
if there were,
test.
there's the erosion sediment controls as there are in any project that have to be tended to and maybe fixed at times. But everything's working very well.
Anything else on Bartlam South? Seeing none, we'll get into new business. And Mr. Martelli, it didn't take that much longer to get to you, but you are up to give us some information on tax increment financing.
All right. So for those that don't know me, I'm Andrew Martelli, Coordinator of Economic Development, excuse me, and grant writing for the town of Cheshire. I was asked to come in tonight to kind of give an overview of the TIF district, which was adopted by the community back in 2019. It's a little bit technical. It's a little bit complicated. I'm going to make it as simple as possible, but stop me at any time if you have any specific questions. So without further ado, you all have the presentation in your packets tonight to follow along. So as I said, I'm going to start with kind of what a TIF district is and then how it applies here and how it was adopted here by the town council back in 2019. So tax increment financing is a tool for economic development, which is allowable under Connecticut General Statute Chapter 105B. The municipalities have to identify a specific plan, set up a steering committee, which is adopted and approved by the town council or whatever the elected body is for the given municipality. When the district is established as an original assessed value for the district. So what that base assessment is, okay? So that's just real simple. That's how it all starts. Cheshire adopted our TIF district back in 2019. The municipalities manage over time, identify, collect, and spend the revenues, complete public projects, and the town council has to approve any project that is paid for out of that TIF revenue. There's an item known as a credit enhancement agreement, which I'll get into a little bit further on in the presentation rather. And that is really the vehicle in which a developer is able to receive some of the funding that is in the TIF account in order to pay for different public infrastructure improvements, which are approved in the initial plan. But real simply, I want to just kind of pull you to the left-hand side here. So bottom line is if the original assessed value of the property is $100, right, which it won't be, but just, I don't feel like doing math up here, is $100, and there's improvements that are made to that property, and that base assessment of the original assessed value increases to $200, okay? The difference between the 100 and the 200 is the new increase, which is known as the tax increment. That valuation is put into an account, okay? The town of Cheshire decided not 100% of that money goes into an account, but 75% of that goes into the account. 25% goes into the general fund, okay? So in our sense, if it was $100 base assessment, went up to $200, $75 goes into the TIF account to pay for any public infrastructure, which was approved by the town for the given district. And then $25 goes directly into the account. Does that make sense? So real simply what it means is that the general taxpayer doesn't have to pay for the infrastructure improvements up front. The town is always whole, but as that valuation increases, that money goes in there to pay for that public infrastructure. So that's the basis behind it. That's why this was done. And now I'm going to get into really specifics about why it was done here and where this area is. So around 691, so in the center of the screen here, running north to south is Route 10, and then east to west is East and West Johnson Avenue. This area is known as the interchange zone, was basically born out of when 691 was developed in the early 1980s. It's 310 acres in 4 specific quadrants, which is on your screen. I know one of the questions that I heard last at the your agenda goals and objective meeting last week was, is all of this property? And the answer is yes. It's not just the Stonebridge Commons development, which is ongoing now, but all 309 acres that makes up the interchange zone, which is represented by the hash mark here, extending down a little bit down Route 10, these parcels here, and then all the way up to the Southington town line, okay? So the particulars of this is this was adopted in 2019, as I already had said. The original assessed value was based on the October 1st, 2018 grand list. And that is what we're using as the base for the assessment of all of those parcels in the district, okay? The tax increment, as I had said, is the difference between the base assessment or the original assessed value and the incremental increases of it. 25% of new tax revenue goes to town's general fund and 75% goes into the TIF account. So again, simply if the OAV was $100 and via development, the increase is now $200, 75 will go in one account, $25 will go into the town's general fund. Expenditures of the TIF account are done by the action of the town council. So anytime if there's money in there, let's say there's other public infrastructure that needs to take place out there, that money is there and it is at your discretion is how that gets used. It also could be swept and put back into the general fund if that is ever needed to be done as well. Okay. The TIF district in the TIF management plan, which was adopted back in 2019, it is a 30-year plan for these parcels in the district. Developers can enter what's known as a credit enhancement agreement for TIF funds for approved improvements within the district, which is really why I'm here tonight, because there is a CEA in place, which was approved back in 2021, which is in place now, which is why some of the infrastructure is being constructed out there, which I'll get into now. A credit enhancement agreement is enabled in a TIF district by state statute. Essentially, it's an agreement between the developer and the host community for a project to capture TIF revenue for TIF district improvements only. Cheshire received its CEA in August of 2021, 1 week after I started employment here, for major development based on approved master plan for a parcel within the TIF district. CEA outlined developers' responsibility for infrastructure installation with repayment agreement. I'll tell you exactly what the particulars of that agreement are that the town is under on my next slide. Important things to know, I get this question a lot. TIF is not a new tax. It's not a special assessment on top of the existing property taxes. The developers or the owners of those parcels pay their property taxes as if it's any other parcel in the town. It's just that when the money comes into the town, that's how it's allocated separately internally, okay? TIF does not replace ordinary budgeting and approval process. Again, any expenditure that takes place out there goes through the town council.
And Andrew,
Yes.
before you move on,
Sure.
just because I think it hits the point that you made earlier, that it is anything above the original assessed value,
Correct.
then the town already gets the original assessed value taxes like it was receiving before, but then we get 25% of the increased value with 75% going into the TIF fund.
That's exactly right. So the best way to think about it is back on the October 1st, 2018 grand list, the town was receiving about $3 million in property taxes out there. The town will always receive that $3 million. But as those property assessments increase and that value goes up, 75% of that money is going into a TIF account, 25% is flowing into the general fund. Okay, to help pay for some of the infrastructure that's needed out there. Hence why the 310 acres were never developed. Okay. Why use TIF? It's really a great mechanism. This is done a lot in southern states, and it's not really done a lot here in Connecticut. I do this presentation at the Connecticut Organization of Small Towns, and we're really looked at kind of as the leader in the TIF process in the state of Connecticut. There's other towns rather, in the state of Connecticut who have TIF districts, but it's very small. We're the largest TIF district in the state, and there's actually progress that's being made out there, which is pretty cool. And I'll show you all that a little bit further in the presentation. So the CEA, as I was talking about, the credit enhancement agreement that the town entered into in 2021 is based on or is covered by 7 lots in the overall interchange zone, which is all these parcels here. Okay. So it's 109 acres and it's known as the Stonebridge Commons development. Okay. So here are the particulars of that CEA. So the town, we received the CEA back in August of 2021. It's between TriStar Development, Miller, Napolitano, Wolf, for the development of 7 lots in the TIF district. The important thing to note with this parcel is that there was no water or sewer that was serving the property. When 691 was constructed, it cut off all of the properties north of 691. So no water, no sewer. If you guys have been around town for a long time, parcel that I'm talking about had been earmarked for the Apple Valley Mall back in the 1980s. There were a couple other developments, the Shops at Cheshire, the Lifestyle Center, the Outlets at Cheshire, all which failed. One of the biggest hindrances to all those developments was the lack of infrastructure in order to support it. Major, major undertaking to bring water and sewer up or under 691. The town had tried, it's my understanding, to tap into resources in Southington. They didn't want our stuff, and so they wanted everything to flow back to our treatment plants. We receive a CEA back in August. The proposal is for $8.5 million worth of infrastructure that's required to support the development. That's the installation of water lines, sewer lines, building a pump station, signalization improvements on Route 10, going through the OSTA permitting, which is a long process. There's deep involvement. There's wetlands on the site, a lot of upfront development costs, hence why that property hasn't been developed. Developer came to us and said, hey, we're going to do $8.5 million. We want the town to pay us back for that. TIF district is in place. We received the CEA. Long negotiation went on. Basically, the way that it came out in the end was that the TIF management committee countered their proposal seeking $8.5 million in reimbursement with a $7 million reimbursement term. That money does not get paid back to the developer until they build $50 million of new vertical construction in the district on that parcel. Okay. So of that 50 million, 15 million has to be commercial valued properties. So the whole reason behind that is what we didn't want to see happen is we didn't want to see the district become all residential in nature. The town wanted commercial. This was the best spot for it right off of 691. It's the way the property had always been envisioned. So in that agreement, we counted and we said, hey, we want $50 million, but of the 50, 15 million has to be commercial valuation. Okay. They agreed to that October 13th, 2021, the CEA was approved by the town council. There was a lot of back and forth between negotiations that went on with Attorney D'Onofrio, entered into the CEA agreement. So that doesn't mean the town is going to give these guys $7 million tomorrow. As the construction happens, they have to hit that 50 million and 15. But not only that, there has to be $7 million actually realized by the town in this TIF account, which is being held at finance, in order to pay the developer back. So until that money is there, no money goes out to the developer. And that was something that was negotiated between us and the developer in order to make sure that taxpayer dollars are never used to pay back the developer, but really just the increase in the valuation of the property. So again, the town's $3 million, the original assessed value is always being realized. 25% of the new valuations flowing into the town's general fund. This money is being accumulated over here. Once they hit their benchmarks, the money gets paid back to the developer for the installation of the infrastructure. It's important to note that we would have had to, if we wanted to do this, we would have had to have bonded that $7 million in order to bring the infrastructure and do the improvements in order to support the development. So the general taxpayer is never out of the money up front to pay for this stuff to get the development done. So it's a great economic development tool, and it's one that we've been really successful with here. And hopefully there'll be other projects that come along as we move forward. I just want to show, so this is the master plan that was approved by the town. Again, this is a change from our zoning. This is a master plan development of both residential, commercial, hotel, gas station, Newtown Road, Commons Court, which is being constructed, which is actually already constructed, which is directly across from the 691 off-ramp. And then approved by planning and zoning. This is what's actually being constructed. So I'll just kind of run you through this real quick. This has been covered really well in the Cheshire Herald and local papers over the past several months, several years actually. But up in the top left-hand side, it's the reserve is Stonebridge Crossing. It's 143 duplexes and fourplexes known as carriage homes and the townhomes. We're already into phase 2 of construction of that. In the center of the screen is, it's actually called River Point is the new name of it. It's a 300-unit apartment development, which is under construction. The clubhouse building and building 1 and 2 are being framed now. And then along Route 10, you have the retail component of it, which is the shops at Stonebridge Crossing. And then closer to 691, there's a Homewood Suites, which is going through different approvals. And then a convenience gas station right opposite the 691. Couple pictures. This is from the marketing for EG Homes, which is the reserve at Stonebridge Crossing. What the developer is doing that we are entered into the CEA with, they're selling the parcels to individual developers who are actually doing the construction. EG Homes is building the first phase, which is off of Dickerman Road. Again, the water and the sewer infrastructure has been brought to the site. So now that's there. That's all energized in order to support the development that's going on. This is East Point, which is the 300-unit apartment development, which is the artist rendering there. This is the actual stone bridge, which was part of the canal construction rather, which still exists out there in the woods. I was out there letting my dogs swim in the pond. And this is a rendering of what the shops at Cheshire will look like immediately opposite 691 with some welcome to Cheshire signage and some landscaping. This has gone through significant design review with planning and zoning, and they've received approval for that. And it's about 168,000 square feet of inline retail with some pad sites. Here's a view looking down onto the Stonebridge shopping area. Southington Mountain would be in the back. 691 is here on the left, and we're basically floating over the new signalized intersection, which will be built just north of the existing commuter parking lot on Route 10. So I just threw a lot at you. I was told to be quick. So that's your quick TIF education for the evening. And I'm here to answer any questions. This is a great picture of a mum field on East Johnson Avenue.
Thank you, Andrew.
Sure.
Excellent job. And that's, there's nothing better than a little TIF primer from time to time. Questions for Andrew? Ms. Kramer.
Less of a question, more of just clarification.
Sure.
It was a lot of information, but a lot of really good information. Basically, the TIF is you're reinvesting the tax increment that we're seeing from the property being upgraded. You're just reinvesting 75% of those funds into.
So we're actually using the funds to pay the developer back who invested their own money to put in the infrastructure.
For the initial 7 million. After that,
Yep.
How long does the TIF last? You said 30 years, it'll be a TIF.
30
area?
years. The CEA is a 10-year agreement with the developer. But the overall district, that 310 acres around 691, that's a 30-year document.
And it'll always be the 75-25?
Unless this board decides to change. The council
Okay.
decides to alter that.
The CEA, right now, I understand that they've put up the development prior to payment, which is, again, great for Cheshire. Moving forward, if there's another infrastructure improvement that needs to be done using TIF funds, do those projects go out to bid, or is it just the developer who is already working on that project?
It depends on what the project would be. So if it's to, for instance, with the water and sewer, that wasn't bid because the developer is doing that themselves. But if, let's say, in the TIF master plan, there's other infrastructure improvements, i.e. a firehouse, right? So if there was ever a firehouse that would be needed out there, that would be go through our normal bidding process that would come through town council for the review and approval. And the TIF revenues could be used to construct that.
After the first 7 million?
That's a good question.
Because I would assume this first
Yeah.
7 million is owned. It's like we borrowed it on a credit card, basically,
Pretty much.
without interest, I hope. But, okay. And my last and final question, the cap of 7 million, let's say their infrastructure goes above and beyond that, that's all we would have to pay, even if they're paying upwards of, 9 or 8.5?
Yes. So we are on, the town is in this agreement is for $7 million. So as part of the CEA, there's a Schedule A. In that Schedule A, it outlines all of the different infrastructure costs that they had to do as part of the development. That actually totals that $8.5 million number back in 21. So I'm sure that that's even been more. And there's been some delays with OSA, with doing the signalization and whatnot on Route 10. But to answer your question, we're on the hook for $7 million. That's it. If it costs them 10, we owe 7.
And the project's realized regardless of whether it goes, that project will be finished regardless of what it costs above that $7 million.
Correct.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And another thing too is that if they were only to build, which they're not, but if they were only to build the residential housing out there, and that was one of the questions that we had gotten a lot. What happens if they only build 300 apartment units and 140 and we just have residential and there's no commercial? They won't get back a penny of the $7 million. They have to hit that 50 million, and of the 50, 15 has to be commercial valuation.
And that would, of course, affect the revenue that Cheshire would see from the increased property taxes on it.
Exactly.
Mr. Slocum.
Two questions, Andrew.
Sure.
Number one is sort of a status update. With the current project, that TIF district, they have actually exceeded the amount of commercial development, have they not, from
Yeah.
the initial projections?
Yeah.
Do you know the approximate percentages and how it?
So we based the actual, so the master plan, in that master plan, it talks about what could be built. So Goldman and York did the master plan. In there, it talks about what the town could realize in new valuation for the property. At that time, they were estimating that there was going to be 140,000 square feet of retail. We're at 160,000 square feet. And of that also, or 170,000 square feet, of that also, it had valuations as to what like the carriage homes and duplexes would be selling for, the townhomes would be selling for. In that document, it puts them at about $380,000 to $410,000. We're seeing some of those properties close to the $700,000 mark. So the values are, the account is going to be flush a lot sooner than originally anticipated. And also the build out of the freestanding homes, I like to call it. They're already, phase one's already sold out. There's already deposits on phase 2, and they weren't supposed to be doing that for several years. And so things are going faster than originally anticipated, which is great for them and for the town. So it's kind of it's working really well, which is great to see, and it's in everybody's best interest. So
Well, as a follow-on, because that could obviously change just because the economy's changed, but we've
Yep.
had a fast start and that's terrific. But my next question would be on some of the vision, for example, for say the West Main Street situation. If the town were to consider, or the council to consider, I don't consider it at first, it would require a secondary establishment. It can't be a confluence of what's going on there. It's a separate project to introduce TIF to that project. That is
So-
correct?
Right. So there'd have to be a TIF management plan adopted for the West Main Street District, which would have to identify what those parcels are, just like we did in the north end with the 310 acres, what those parcels are. It'd have to set that original assessed valuation like we did based on whatever grand list that is. And then that's how you'd calculate that. But yes, I mean, we have the framework for it, but all of the actual area specific details would have to be populated and then come back before the town council.
And that may in fact not make sense because of some of the other monies that are involved in that, but that would be a conversation for economic development potentially.
For sure.
To
It's been
at
a
least
conversation.
have that and inform the council in the future.
Sure. And it's actually been a discussion. We had an Economic Development Commission meeting this morning here at Town Hall, and we just discussed that as it relates to the West Main Street area also. So
I know that's complicated in another project and you probably don't need them, but whatever. Thank you.
welcome.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slocum. Mr. Velaber. Did you have something?
I was going to ask a similar question to what Mr. Slocum asked, just to get an idea where we are and how it's progressing, because I'd heard that, right, we're doing, it's starting off very well, and I wanted to make sure that we're going to meet those $50 million and $15 million goals.
Yeah, I mean, as who knows, every day, you know, with the way the economy is, it's moving. Our building official could speak to it. I mean, they're getting permits are going out. His crew's out there making inspections, so it's moving. And P&Z, all the approvals are in place for the vertical construction of the commercial buildings. And from speaking with Regency Partners, who's the developer, they're really looking to hit the ground running as soon as the weather's a little bit better out there, to really start getting the shopping area built. And that's going to be a very valuable structure that's built out there. So that money's going to start coming in. And the hotel, we should start seeing construction there happening in the spring also.
Oh, great. I was going to ask when that's kicking off as well. Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Developer. Mr. Jenks and then Mr. Walsh.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if this question is for you, Andrew, necessarily. First of all, thank you for the presentation. Well done. The boundaries of the TIF district, is that something that can be modified by us if need be, or if we'd like to?
The master plan would have to be modified.
Okay. Which involves what?
Well, you would go through a process of public hearing, and the town council could modify the master plan to modify the boundaries if you wanted to go through that process.
Okay. The reason why I was asking, it looks like the current TIF district does not include West Johnson Avenue from Dickerman to Route 10. Is that right? It looks like it's just to the edge of the road, right? Doesn't include West Johnson.
It includes one side of West Johnson. It includes the north side of West Johnson, but not the
Right.
south side.
So if we wanted to, at some point, for example, create a link we've discussed, some sort of link from the trail to Route 10, on road, bike route or something, it wouldn't be a part of the TIF district as it's currently constructed.
No.
Right. Okay.
I mean, there's great linkage, if you want my personal opinion, on Dickerman Road to the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, which is part
Right,
of
but
it.
there isn't linkage across the property. There's no link across the property. We'd have to go around, is what I'm saying.
So you're talking to get from the Farmington Canal Trail to Route 10?
To the commercial side of the property.
Yeah, I mean, there's a way to do it. It's just not in this plan right now. So
Right.
the developer's not constructing that, but there's definitely a way to do it.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Jenks. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since you brought it up, if there is a fire station needed up there, is that something that's going to be discussed and decided by us? And then we'll say we're going to use this TIF money for that, I guess we're going to have, these are things that we're looking at already. I know we talked to Chief Drive about if we're going to need additional police officers, if we're going to need, because there's a big, large development going on up there. You're having a lot more people up there, a lot more businesses and things like that. So for infrastructure doesn't include, the extra police or any of that, but it does include the building that we might need to do, even if we have to put a substation up there or something like that. So
not personnel, but bricks and mortar, yes.
right. And so if the time comes and we need to create a fire station up there, is that something that I'm assuming that the council would have to approve first, and then we say we're going to use the TIF money for that?
So any expenditure out of the TIF funds is an act of the town council. So yes.
Right. So, okay.
Yeah, no, Mr. Walsh, so it would probably something like that would probably go through our normal capital budget process, but then when we identify sources of revenue, apart from bonds, or if the entire account has enough money to pay for the whole thing, could be the entire thing, but maybe it's 20% of the cost, maybe there's grants involved, and that's how you'd build the project sheet for the capital budget.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Veliver.
Yeah, just a quick question, just following up on that, just to give us sort of a vision here. If this project fills out the way we hope it will, what type of revenue projection? I mean, obviously, $7 million of it goes back to the developer. to reimburse them for their expenditures. And obviously, then we'll have a pool of money above and beyond potentially that 7 million. Is there a revenue projection as to how much that number is? I think if we talked about that, I can't remember what that number would come out to be.
I'd have to get that back to you on that. But there was a number that was set back in the 2019.
Yeah, I just can't remember.
So,
I know we did. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
it needs to, first of all, it needs to be updated, but I could definitely work with the town assessor and get that information to you.
I'm just curious what kind of when we're talking about something like a fire station, obviously that's going to be a
Right.
big ticket item. Or obviously my understanding too of this is that we can use these funds for other infrastructure in other parts of the TIF district. So it may not be that, it could be for others, the 3 other quadrants of the TIF district as
Yes,
well.
and in the master plan, it talks about firehouse, other infrastructure, streetscape, all of the bike lanes, all of those types of things that you would want to see in that area. Being allowable uses for that. But again, not for personnel, not for additional police or fire,
Right.
for the actual individuals, but for the stations, yes.
Thank you.
So all that's identified in the master plan.
Thank you very much.
Sure. After 10 years.
The CEA.
Yes. After 10 years, the question, after 10 years, all of the money is going back to well, not entirely. 75% of it's still going into the TIF management account for 30 years.
Right. For the town, but the town is full.
Right. So if the CEA is paid, so let's say the developer is paid back the $7 million, that money is still going in there. Every year, you're going to get an accounting as to what is in that account, and the town council can make it on a yearly basis, can make the decision to sweep that money into the general fund. So that's what the question was.
Thank you for that clarification. That does help too.
She's trying to jam me after it's like.
And and I'm not sure if this is you or Mr. Jascott or Mr. Kimball, but what's in the account now? Do we know?
I don't know that. They don't tell me that.
Probably with good
I
reason.
tried. That's just.
Yeah, I'd have to check, but I believe it's under 100,000 right now. There hasn't been that much that's materialized at this point because the grand list
Right.
last year there really wasn't much going on at that point. But I expect that will ramp up quickly.
Thank you. Andrew, thank you for
You're welcome.
the presentation. We really appreciate it. It's nice to touch base and get a good understanding of what's happening up there. So thank you.
If anybody has any specific questions, you know where to find me. I'm happy to walk you back through it. So, thank you.
And Mr. Kimball, if we could just kind of just put on your town manager's report, maybe on a semi-annual basis, when we get towards the end of the year, just an accounting of what's in there as things get rolling a little bit more. And then maybe it may be even annual. So maybe September of this year and then September of the following. All right, moving on to, speaking of TIF, it's a nice segue. The confirmation of appointments to the TIF Management Committee, Mr. Jenks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves resolution number 011624-2. Be it resolved that the Town Council confirms the following individuals as members of the TIF Management Committee per the committee composition stated in the master plan. Town Council member Peter Talbot, Economic Development Commission members Don Dobbs and Derek Gromko, business member Doug Johnson, Marion Manufacturing, Town Assessor Christine McCardle, Town Economic Development Coordinator Andrew Martelli, Town Planner Mike Liddon. These members shall serve until no longer in their represented positions or until replaced with a new appointment by the Town Council.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Slocum. Try that again on Mike. Thank you, Mr. Slocum. Any discussion? Mr. Slocum.
Only pleased to see the reappointment of those that have served. I think they bring tremendous leadership to that process when it unfolds and re-unfolds. So I'm happy to support this.
Thank you, Mr. Slocum. And with that, I'll call for a vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item C, acceptance and appropriation of $50,000 in State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection funding for the Yankee Expressway Highlands Open Space Improvements. Could that property be any longer in length? Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 0116243. Be it resolved that the Town Council accepts and appropriates $50,000 in State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection funding for the Yankee Expressway Highlands Open Space Improvements. And be it further resolved that the Town Council authorizes Town Manager Sean Kimball to execute any and all necessary documents associated with this funding.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Slocum, thank you. Discussion. Sean, do you want to give us some background on this, please?
Yeah, so back in December, we received word that we had received a $50,000 grant through the Bond Commission. And as described, this is for the Yankee Expressway Highlands Open Space Improvements. We are contemplating installation of a trail kiosk, additional signage. As you'll recall, we've completed the parking area there that had been in the works for the better part of about 5 or 6 years. Technically, that's in Wolcott property that the town of Cheshire owns. So somewhat complicated approvals, but it's all set there. And so connecting the parking lot over to the existing trail network is something else that's contemplated with these funds. And then just general improvements to that trail network that's been created organically there going forward. Again, it's a beautiful property. I know a few of us walked it a couple months ago. I know members of the council have as well. And particularly this time of year when it's not like today's weather, the views with the leaves off the trees are very impressive from up there. Beautiful parcel that the town owns, and that I think once it's all ready with respect to signage and the parking and the connectivity and the accessibility, something that I think the town residents will really enjoy once they're made more aware of it also, and maybe some promotional campaign we can do to get folks out there and enjoying that property. So we're thrilled to receive the money and would ask for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Any questions? Mr. Walsh.
Hey, how many spots is in that parking lot now?
I believe it's about a dozen. Is that right? Mike's nodding. We're going to go with 12, right around.
So the money it's 50,000. So, you're just going to put a kiosk and maybe do some trail work or something is.
Yeah, I think it's more than enough for signage in it
than
a kiosk.
50,000.
So yeah, I think that's where, accessibility from that parking lot right now, you got to kind of traipse through, 50 or 70 feet of sort of woods before you get into the real primary trail that's existed there, probably for hundreds of years before you then get into the rest of the network as you come over the crest there. So I think improvements to that area, and as you see with a lot of our trail access areas, there may be some split rail fencing or other thing to kind of just guide people to the right area. So I think that's going to be part of it. And also, again, signage, not just at the trail and maybe some blazing, but also something that tells you when you're on 322, this is where you pull off and park. So
It was a good Eagle Scout project, too.
great Eagle Scout project. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Ms. Allard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sean, I just have a question. It seems as though per the email we received from the DEEP, there were some stipulations with respect to this. I was just wondering, were those requirements met, or are these funds pending, satisfying some of these requirements?
I'll turn that to Andrew, who's taking care of that process for us.
So to answer your question, the first step is we need town council to accept and appropriate. Then these items here, the term sheet, attachment A, resolution. The resolution is what hopefully will come out of this meeting here. Certificate of liability insurance. All of this is pretty standard stuff that the state requires when we receive these funds. And those are things that I'll be putting together and submitting back to the state. But first, I want to make sure we want the money, and then I'll follow up with the rest of the paperwork.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Wolf.
Do we have any plans, or are there any plans in existence that will have Cheshire access to the property, or is it strictly at this point just Wolcott?
So not right now. I know over the last few years, there have been some discussions across sort of current private property over off Hazel Drive area, there's potential access, but nothing formalized as of yet. But those may be conversations that can be revisited as we go forward.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. So we do want the money. Item D is the authorization to apply for a 2024 Connecticut DOT High-Risk Rural Roads Speed Enforcement Program. What's with the lengthy names of all these? This grant is in the amount of $39,600 and acceptance and appropriation of said grant. Ms. Allard, please.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 011624-4. Be it resolved that the Town Council authorizes application for a 2024 Connecticut Department of Transportation DO2 High-Risk Rural Roads Speed Enforcement Program grant in the amount of $39,600 and accepts and appropriates said grant to be used for speed measuring equipment and enforcement. And be it further resolved that the council authorizes town manager Sean N. Kimball to execute any and all necessary documents associated with the grant.
Mr. Walsh, thank you for your second. And Chief Dreyfus here to offer us some discussion on the topic.
Sure. This is a grant from, obviously, from the state DOT that I think will, they're very concerned, I think, as are a lot of us, with the increase in fatal motor vehicle accidents across the state over the last couple of years. There's two parts to this grant. The first of which was, to be quite frank, the most attractive to me was the ability to buy some additional equipment. As I'm sure many of you know, we're constantly getting requests from residents for the speed monitoring signs. We try to move them around as much as we can, but this gives us an opportunity to buy 4 more. I shouldn't say that. We're allowed to purchase equipment as long as it's less than $4,900 each. We're figuring to buy 4 more of those speed monitor signs that, when you pass, they flash your speed so that we can be more responsive to the public and have them in more locations in town. We're also going to apply for $20,000 for some enforcement. And again, that would be used to pay officers overtime to go out and just be dedicated to doing speed enforcement on the roads that have been identified as part of the grant. That's a reimbursement part. So if we, let's say we are only able to spend 12,000 of it, we'll only get reimbursed for that, and won't, we don't necessarily have to go for the full 20,000 on that. That's what we intend to do with the money if we are awarded it.
Any questions for the chief? Mr. Veliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, thank you very much for this. And in your memo, you talk about you would like to apply for $20,000 for proactive speed enforcement. And I just want to, when you say proactive speed enforcement, what do you mean by, is that paying officers to physically be there? I mean, what do you consider proactive speed enforcement?
It's having an officer in a cruiser running radar, pulling people over for speed violations. And, when you're doing these state grants, it's enforcement based. So it means tickets more than warnings in those cases. And again, the ability to dedicate an officer for some period of time to do that, as opposed to, just having them try to do it in between calls when they're on routine patrol.
Great, thank you. I just want to make sure that this is not for, the process which was adopted. Obviously, maybe the council may have to eventually be looking at this, but this is not for video enforcement. This is not like red light camera type thing. This is all physical police enforcement, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Veliver. Mr. Jenks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to thank you for being here tonight, Chief, to come out and explain this to us and to the community. It's obviously speeding is something that's everyone's complaint, and probably everyone contributes to it as well. But I just think that, this is something that Mr. Darter mentioned it earlier, that the Public Safety Commission had, we'd done a study a few years ago, and speeding was, one of the 2 or 3 main complaints from people in town. So it's great that we're able to access these funds from the state, and hopefully, I think you mentioned earlier that, whenever this comes up, you'll probably try and get more of these. I think these speed indicator signs have proven to slow people down, at least temporarily, or change their behavior for some measure of time, that they've had some improvement as far as speed goes. I think we have plenty of places in town where they'll come to good use. So thank you again for being here.
You bet.
Thank you, Mr. Jenks. Ms. Kramer?
2 questions. Can you explain to me or give an example of a high-risk rural road here in Cheshire?
There was a list, and I unfortunately did not bring it with me. But
Are there
these
qualifiers for it?
Yeah, there's the state bases it a lot on their crash data. So there are places in town where we have where we have what they consider to be an excessive number of crashes. Think places like Cheshire Street and maybe Peck Lane. It was a convoluted kind of definition, to be frank with you.
So those are rural roads? Okay.
Yeah, we don't think of ourselves as very rural. I don't. When somebody says rural to me, I think
Farmland.
Pomfret or something like that. I don't think Cheshire, but we did qualify under the definition to apply.
So all of Cheshire?
Conceivably, yes.
Oh, okay. That's great. And it was recently brought to my attention that these speed monitors that show the posted speed limit and then show you your speed of travel, those are data collections systems.
Yes, the ones we intend to purchase are. Not everyone is set up like that. Some just flash your speed, but the ones we like are the ones where, when people complain about, oh, everybody's doing 70 miles an hour on my road, we put it out there and determine that, sure, maybe 1 or 2 cars go through at 70, but the most. So yes.
It's incredibly smart to do that.
Traffic volume and direction of travel, peak hours, peak speeds, all of that. Yes.
Does it's automated some of the data collection, so you don't need a police officer to sit there and collect that data for you.
Right.
And it's not word of mouth, because I think everybody speeds on my block.
Yes.
But is that information ever public?
It's a public record if somebody asked for it. Again, assuming that we have it, it would be a public record and available to people. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. I know that you've provided us with some of that data in the past, Chief. So
Yes.
yeah, some of that is available to us. Any other questions? Ms. Allard?
Well, I had one. I was going to ask if any of the speed boxes that we currently have collect data, but it sounds as though they do.
They do.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Item E is the approval of 2 additional inspection positions for the fire department and the building department, and authorization to hire. Ms. Kramer.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 011624-4. Be it resolved that the town council authorizes application for 2024 CT Department of Transportation High Risk Rural Road Speed Enforcement Program grant in the amount of, am I reading the right one? Stop me anytime, guys. I just checked in. Okay, be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 011624-5. Be it resolved that the town council approves the additional staff positions of deputy fire marshal and assistant building official to meet the significant increase in demand for inspections, and further authorizes town manager Sean M. Kimball to hire and fill said positions.
We have a motion and a second from Mr. Walsh. Mr. Lozier, do you want to give us some information on this, or Mr. Kimball is going to take it? So
Yeah, I'm happy to just do sort of a summary. I know that both Mr. Kozlowski and Mr. Lozier presented at our last budget committee meeting, but again, happy to have them jump in whenever. I just wanted to give kind of a brief overview. This is relatively unique situation. Again, we don't usually hire positions mid-year. We try to plan for them in advance of any budget year during the budget process. But as you heard, really, and coincidentally from the TIF presentation we just had, largely driven by a lot of the development, not just in the North End, but across the town, the amount of inspections, both for the fire department and the building department, the demands on their time, on their scheduling, and then the accompanying wait times that we're trying to avoid for folks on their projects in town are just really at unprecedented levels. You'll see in the memo that it referenced at the time we were first bringing this through in November, we had already taken in, I think it says $500,000 in the first 4 months. Just an update, I was pulling the numbers today through 6 months. Building department revenue is at $737,000. Just in 2023, we only budgeted $700,000 for building department revenue.
Yeah.
So this year we budgeted $1,050,000, but we are, as you can see, through 6 months already on, if this pace were to hold up, which is always risky to do with building department revenue, understanding, but we're on track for about $1.5 million if things were to hold through the spring and early summer. As of today, we're at $792,000. So again, I think it references, again, and just for, certainly the edification of folks kind of new to the council, this isn't something we get to offset in the budget. So it can justify an expenditure. We will see it on the revenue side of the balance sheet, but we don't get to then just offset that dollar for dollar. We would be approving these projects. We're asking for your approval, understanding that that's going to exceed what we budgeted in this year's expenditure side of the budget. That said, when it comes to calculate the surplus for the entire year, which we are tracking, again, very strongly, both with some state grant revenue, and again, Mr. Jascott's here to answer any other kind of financial questions you may have. But we feel this is very, very much needed, and very much justified by the increased activity, again, that you heard referenced earlier. At this point, we won't be hiring. We're already, less than 6 months in the fiscal year as we stand now. There needs to be a recruitment process in the current year. The further we go on, obviously the impact just this fiscal year is a little bit reduced from the estimates you see there. But it's a commitment the town's not, just making for 4 or 5 months. We are asking for new positions, and we'll continue to monitor like we do with every other position going forward. If things were to take a dramatic turn in the economy, that might see fit a need to reevaluate the staffing. But at this point, there's just no way they can keep up with the demand the way it is now, and with the standards that we hold ourselves to and that the council holds us to. So we, happy to answer any questions. And again, like I said, the fire marshal and building official are here, and we look for your support. So thank you.
Mr. Walsh.
I know that we had discussed we're going to start a fee for the fire. When is it? The next fiscal year is what we're hoping to start that, or is that?
I think that's been, so that's being referred to the ordinance committee. So it needs to first be considered by the council and then implemented. I think realistically, the timeline, with the public hearing and anything else that you might have to add for building fee amendments, would put it probably more targeting into the next budget year. But yes, I think when we first introduced this, we did bring up the issue that we talked about last year when we amended our building fees, that there really are no dollar for dollar fees charged by the fire department for their inspections and their time. Yet we have a fully staffed division, multiple both part-time and full-time assistant building officials helping Mike out, that ultimately, the increased demand on their time is an expenditure the town is feeling. So a creative solution to offset that in some way as a portion of the building fee is probably the proposal we'll be recommending.
Because I think what was also discussed is with those private firms, builders, contractors use private firms to do, but we still have to send our fire marshal out to inspect, even though they have their people do it. So is it double work, or is it just?
So I think early on, at least from my own personal perspective, I think there was an assumption, maybe incorrectly on my own behalf, that the third-party inspection services would kind of offset a lot of that, because you have to have third-party. The developments in the North End are very complicated, very, very again, just very complicated structures. Third-party review is standard. But I know in talking with both Mike and Tom, the problem is, their signatures still have to be on the final permits. They need to say that it's all life safety components check out, and they need to review their work. And sometimes some of the work is better quality than others. So again, they can speak to that more directly than I can, but that's what they've shared with me. And I think it means it doesn't a full replacement for the amount of work that's needed, just simply hiring it out, because ultimately they're signing their names to the project.
Any other questions? Call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Gentlemen, thank you to both the fire department and the building department. Thank you for hanging with us. And in the words of Mrs. Doubtfire, help is on the way. Item F is the acceptance of Michael Place as a town road. Mr. Wolf.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 011624-6. Be it resolved that the town council accepts Michael Place as a town road conditional upon the filing of a maintenance bond and recording of the warranty deed for the roadway and the storm drainage and sightline easements, free and clear of all encumbrances.
Second by Mr. Veliber. Discussion. Sean, do you want to give
Sure.
us some background on Michael Place?
Sure. And I know both the town planner and our public works director are here as well. They could chime in if I leave anything out, but this has been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Again, when first proposed, this was a road that was anticipated to be a town road. And so once it meets all of the requirements of staff inspections, that it's to the quality that we expect and demand, this now I guess unencumbers the developer from having to maintain that road, plow it, for instance, this time of year, and now converts it to a town asset and a town road that we're responsible for maintaining going forward. I think that's it. Anything else? Let me know.
Questions? How soon does this take effect? So, will we have salt trucks out on Michael Place this evening, or?
Yeah, I think they have to record the warranty deed.
Okay, so we get a little bit of a.
Maybe
Yeah.
not tonight. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll drive right by it tonight, but then next week we'll probably be on it.
All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Item G is the one-time approval of write-offs of minimal tax refunds incurred prior to implementation of the current ordinance permitting write-offs. Mr. Jenks.
That about says it, actually, Peter, but be it resolved, the town council approves resolution number 011624-7, whereas the town council amended ordinance section 17-18 to enable the write-off of small tax refunds and balances beginning with the grand list of October 2022. Be it resolved that the town council hereby authorizes a one-time write-off of delinquent tax balances of $2 or less for grand list years 2007 through 2021, totaling $5.15, and tax credit balances of $4.99 or less for grand list 2020 to 2021, totaling $128.
Thank you, Mr. Jenks. Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Mr. Kimball, not a lot of money in these accounts. So.
No, and a lot of just cleanup here. As you can see, these are very much de minimis amounts. The grand total is $128 plus the $5.15 there that you see of affected. But it allows us to clean up these accounts that are otherwise just accruing and sitting there over the next number of years. And so we would look for your support for this approval. Thank you.
Do we cover this out of petty cash, or how do we manage this?
I think it's just a write-off. Yeah, just a paper transaction.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I just wanted to say I'm in favor of this. It's, this was one of the things that the Ordinance Review Committee did last term. I think it was very important. And more importantly, it's not a lot of money, but it was going to take the, the tax and the finance office more time and energy to keep these on the books than it is to extinguish them. So I think this is a good plan, and for a small amount of money, it actually saves the town money by not having to keep it on the books and have the town have to try to enforce this. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Item H is the approval of reallocation of $10,058.82 from fiscal year 23 capital budget to supplement the purchase of a replacement 2024 Chevy Tahoe SSV for the police department. Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 011624-8. Be resolved that the town council hereby approves a reallocation of $10,058.82 from fiscal year 23 capital budget vehicle equipment replacement account to supplement the insurance proceeds for the purchase of a replacement 2024 Chevy Tahoe SSV for the police department.
We have a motion and a second from Mr. Walsh. Chief, tell us the woes of the previous vehicle.
I figured somebody might have, it was struck by lightning, I swear. No, it was parked, it was actually quite the lightning strike. Chief Kasner was out that night because it knocked out power, damaged multiple homes. But as I referenced earlier, a vehicle now is basically a computer with wheels and a gas tank, right? And it totaled it. The insurance company came out, deemed it a complete loss. They generously wrote us a check for the entire purchase price. But of course, in the intervening time, now you can't get a 23 Ford Explorer anymore. The Fords are being re-engineered. If we want to wait, it'll be for a 25. We probably won't be able to even order it until later this year. And of course, the cost of the Chevy went up on the state contract price from year to year also. So this, the amount that we're reallocating, when we ordered a new animal control vehicle during the pandemic, we ran into the whole supply chain issue. We worked with our vendor who said conservatively we should ask for about $45,000 for that because he was just seeing the price for these Ford Transit vans going through the roof. When we ultimately got it, and literally it's still getting decals put on it. It ended up only costing us a little under 35, so that the money was there in another capital account for a vehicle replacement. So spoke with Jim and Sean, and this is the way they wanted to handle the extra money.
Makes a lot of sense. Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Item I is the review and approval of the Hitchcock Phillips House Professional Estimating Services proposal of $21,000. Mr. Wolf.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 011624-9. Be it resolved that the town council approves the Hitchcock Phillips House Professional Estimating Services proposal from Jakunski Humes Architects LLC in the amount of $21,000. And be it further resolved that the town council authorizes town manager Sean M. Kimball to allocate funding from the capital planning account and to execute this agreement pursuant to the terms and conditions as presented and the approval by the town attorney as to form and function.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Mr. Velaber with the second. Discussion. Mr. Kimball, do you have
Yeah, I can introduce it. and,
some background just quickly?
Mr. Bombero is here as well if there's any specific questions, but this stems from conversations over the last couple of years with the Historic Society, who operate out of the Hitchcock Phillips House. This is just across the church green here. As with any building that's, I believe it's from 1785, it's an older building. It has older building challenges. And I think, as they've continued through their new leadership to operate and shift how they're storing things and operating things and things in the basement and upstairs and move things around. It's a complicated building. The town first acquired, I believe, from Cheshire Academy a number of years ago. So it had one time been dorm space and other things. So it had multiple uses and functions. But as with a lot of those changes come, repairs, some areas that need to be addressed, some water in the basement, some other items that Public Works has kind of on a case-by-case basis gone out to maintain. But, not unlike the conversations we've had before with the community pool, it's great to have a full assessment and a plan and kind of a long-term capital plan for realistic expectations of what improvements are needed for the building. So we have a proposal here for $21,000 for a assessment of the building and doing just that, kind of mapping out what the capital needs would be going forward. I think some of these could be significant. I mean, there's some roofing issues and other things that have been, kind of on the horizon for some time, but I think we want to make sure we're, investing in the property and maintaining it to the best of our ability and for whatever needs the town sees, again, currently with the Historic Society occupying the building. So I don't know if I left anything out, Dan, but happy to answer any questions. Yep.
Is in certain states of deterioration, depending on where you look at it, how you look at it. The opportunity that we're lent here is the ability to have an established plan that includes assumed costs at, present costs to allow the council and the community an opportunity to determine the path forward for the facility. Having a long-term plan as opposed to our team chipping away at the little bits and pieces of it is most appropriate in preserving this historic facility. Some of the small projects we've taken on, but some of the larger long-term projects are best suited to be handled as more of a capital project. What we'll be left with would be a set of architectural plans, to which we don't have at this time, which will help us for the planning in the future. Even if we don't pursue any immediate projects, having those plans, the recommendations of the architects, as well as some of these assumed costs, will help us in the long term to set a path forward for the house.
Mr. Slocum.
Just a quick question. Obviously, this is in the historic district. There's policies about how they get engaged in the process. At what point do they have to be engaged? After the plans are rendered, or do you have discussions with them in advance?
Well, what we would be doing at this point, we would be just generating a scope of projects. It wouldn't be until the time that you were to pursue anything exterior features on the house that we'd go to the historic district. Obviously, it would have to be something that would be fitting and appropriate for the term of the house. The other opportunity that we would have is, with Andrew and looking at some historic preservation funds that could potentially be out there, having these plans in place, having scopes, having projects identified previously to, an airing of one of these grant opportunities will kind of set us up for a better success in applying for them should they be available.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Wolf, then Mr. Veliber.
So owning a home of a similar vintage, I appreciate the undertaking you guys are taking on. So a couple of questions. Are we planning on doing the work in-house, or are we going to go with recommendations externally to do the work?
For each individual project? I think dependent on the scope of the project. Certainly some of the smaller projects, we do only have a staff of 2 dedicated building maintainers for all of the town facilities. So on a daily basis, their projects are limited to smaller scale maintenance related. A lot of the projects that we would be looking at undertaking with this facility would likely have to meet state historic preservation if we were going after grant money. There is the opportunity for some small scale project to be handled in-house, but likelihood would be most of them would be handled externally.
Thank you.
Mr. Veliber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dan, for this. And Andrew, I know you're obviously actively involved in this as the former liaison to the Historic District Commission. This is something that has been on their radar screen for a while. And something that brought to the council's attention last term because, they're concerned with this. They're seeing the deterioration of the building. And obviously it is not only in their district, but obviously it's it's the historical society. So, so they have been working on that. So I'm glad to see that, we know this is, in discussions, it's going to be an expensive project to bring that property back probably, but I'm glad that we're at least making that first start to evaluate the property because I think there's a lot of projects that are going to need to be done. And so I think this is great to finally have a consultant come in, look at it and maybe see what those projects are going to be, prioritize them. Right. And these are going to be potentially big capital projects. So this is probably not the last we'll have heard of this project. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Veliver. Anyone else? Ms. Kramer?
I know it's further down the line, but I know as you get involved with SHPO and SEPA and DECD and all of those processes with grant monies and adverse findings, anything of that nature, are you going to be coming back and reporting to us as you go through the process, as you start to involve state agencies and looking at the work, the scope of work, and any types of grants, or are we going to be
Prior to applying for any grant opportunity, we would bring it before the council to get the authorization needed to even apply for the grant.
And because it's in a historic district, SHPO would obviously be involved.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a state grant, SHPO would be involved in we would be pursuing, if anything, historic preservation grants. And in that, SHPO would be involved in the process.
Okay, that's a fun process.
Certainly is. Andrew's good at it.
I'll help.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Item J is the annual conflict of interest notification and disclosures. We received information from Attorney D'Onofrio concerning this, and it is in your packets this evening. So if anybody has anything they'd like to disclose, now is a good time, or seeing none, we will move on. But thank you. Item K is the review and adoption of amendments to Town Council Rules of Procedure. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 011624-10. Be it resolved that the Town Council adopts the Cheshire Town Council Rules of Procedure with amendments as presented and attached. In full disclosure to my colleagues, there was a last-minute change, and that's why this is in your packets tonight. On page 2, you'll notice that public communication has changed as we had discussed previously. That will be now allowed for any comments, whether on the agenda or not on the agenda. And then the last minute change was number 12. Number 12 will just now be appointments. I know one of Mr. Slocum's favorite topics was the dreaded miscellaneous, so we've crossed that off of number 12. On page 4, there is several changes regarding public hearings. There is one regarding committees, changed from council resolution to by the chairperson. And in number 2, we are changing the name of the Solid Waste Committee to Sustainability Committee. On page 7, just a change of chairman to chairperson, and that constitutes the changes. Could I get a second before we go into discussion any further? Thank you, Mr. Jinks. I apologize for not doing that sooner.
Just
Yes.
one question, just for clarity. I have no argument about miscellaneous, by the way. But
I didn't think
does
you
that
would.
not appear in two places? There's something called miscellaneous and appointments. Is that what you changed to appointments?
Yes, that's the number 12.
Fine, because okay, but it's number 11 here. So I just wanted to verify, because 12 here is town attorney report and communications. So there's still room under council communications, letters to the council 4B, which would be miscellaneous. So we didn't get rid of all the miscellaneous.
No, we left one.
So it's
just
not
in
quite a
case we
clean sweep.
do ever have a miscellaneous.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Well, I had to bring it back to time.
By 11 seconds, we'll
There you go.
shorten it, yeah.
Go.
Any other questions? Mr. Walsh?
You know, I know in our, what is currently until we vote, solid waste committee, we had run around and trying to, because we do have several different groups called sustainability. There's a sustainability team, there's sustainability Cheshire, and now this could be the sustainability committee. So we were trying to throw around different names, and it all just kept coming back to sustainability. And that's I mean, you could say waste and add a lot of things. I just hope that it doesn't confuse people with that, but maybe we could change the names of the sustainability team or something like that to something else so that it's not confusing to those, but I have no objections to that. And the other issue was under public hearing, and I know this isn't really in here, this part, but I know that there's still, I guess it's a state statute that we have to publicly put it in a newspaper. And I bring this up every year. And it's supposed to be a newspaper that many people in the town read. And, you know, as I believe there might be a reporter here, so I don't want to say anything derogatory about the Cheshire Herald might not be around. It may still be around. But going forward, we're going to have to make a determination on where these will have to be listed. If the state's still antiquated and wants it put in a newspaper, that's on the state. But I'm hoping that there's some movement somewhere where we could find another way to put these posts so that more people will see them versus a newspaper that might only have 2,000 or 3,000 people reading it. So.
And oh, by the way, the cost of those, putting those in is not cheap. So, yeah,
Of course.
I don't disagree with you at all. Any other comments or questions regarding the?
Only just one, if I could, just point
Sure.
of clarity. I'm just noting that the updated draft that's at the dais appears to, it does make the change for miscellaneous, but it doesn't appear to be incorporating the chairperson from chairman changes. So just would want to clarify that the adopted version is supposed to include all of the above.
On which page is that, Sean?
I think on all of them. I think on page 3, on page, so at item order of business. Right, just not in the version that we have. up
Okay.
here. So like order of business A, so all of those, just want to make sure it's clear, are intended to be changed to person. That
Yes,
was not an intentional.
that is the,
unchange.
no,
That's my only.
that is the intention. Yes, thank you for that important clarification. So. Yeah, exactly. Seeing no other questions, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Which brings us to L, which I think I just moved out of the way. I did. Appointment of Town of Cheshire representative to the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments. And that will be Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution numbers 011624-11. Be it resolved that the town council appoints town council chairperson Peter Talbot as the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments representative for the town of Cheshire through December 31st, 2025.
Second.
And a second from Mr. Jinks. Thank you, Mr. Jinks. This is just Mr. Slocum as chair served on this before. The designee will be, for me, will be Mr. Martelli, although I do reserve the right to attend with you from time to time as my schedule allows. So, any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item M, discussion and approval of income levels for the 2024 local elderly tax credit program. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 011624-12. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves the following changes to the property tax relief qualifying incomes in the ordinance section 17-6A2 and 17-6A3 for the 2023 grand list.
Second.
Mr. Walsh? Thank you. Mr. Walsh on the second, Madam Clerk. Mr. Kimball or Mr. Jaskat, do you want to talk about Mr. Jaskat, our finance director, will talk about the changes.
Yeah, so every year we come to the council to approve the new state brackets for their elderly credit program, which our program piggybacks off those state brackets. And every year they increase theirs, and we come to you to increase ours commensurate with that. Our brackets go beyond what the state brackets are. We try to keep those increases at the same percentage that they've increased their brackets. I think that's kind of in a nutshell for our elderly credit program qualification. Just to more or less keep up with inflation.
And Ms. Jaskat, if I'm not mistaken, we go above and beyond what the state does. So
Yeah, we have several brackets beyond what the state does. And I know over the years, we've tried to enhance our credit program to, make it, I guess, easier for some of the elderly folks in town to be able to afford staying.
I appreciate that, because not only do we adhere to the state, but we've tried to be a little bit more generous with our population that is on fixed income. So, questions regarding
I just wanted to ask how we promote this program in town. Thank you. Ask how we promote the program in town. I know that we talked a little bit during our meeting in terms of making sure that we have outreach so we know that folks that can take advantage of this will be taking advantage of this
I know
program.
it's published in the paper, and we do certainly try to promote it at the senior center and work with them to, spread the word. But that's I don't know if anybody else knows. That's pretty much it.
The senior center does a lot of educating on this. And assessor's office itself. And also our human services department will let people know if they fall under category.
Correct.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Mr. Walsh.
And still have a problem calling it the elderly tax. I like the word senior as I age. I prefer to be. But I also, it is also for the disabled as well. So, I know human services does, but maybe we need to do a better way of reaching out to some of the disabled out there too. I think there's probably a lot who don't go to the senior center, and they might be homebound or something like that. And I think, again, the newspaper, we need to find a better way. I know we discussed this in meetings. We have to find better ways to communicate these programs to people so that they can take advantage of it. The biggest thing we hear from the people in this town is it's getting more and more costly to live in this town. And we have to make sure that they know that there are programs like this available to them. And I fully support this, and I'm glad that we continue to take care of our seniors and the disabled and the veterans, like we've done for the many years in the past too. So I'll fully support this, but I think, like Fiona was saying, we do need to try to find a better way to communicate these programs out to the people too. So thanks.
Mr. Slocum.
Just, I sought some clarification in the Budget Committee because I always have found this a little, I either forget about it or I didn't pay much attention. But to be clear, these adopted as of this evening limits or qualifying income will have already had to have been applied for. Is that not correct? As of,
I believe the application process is coming up in the next few months.
so it would be for people filing next year.
Right.
But they apply now. See, that's the thing. So someone who, for example, had called me by way of example about missing a deadline, they were referring to last year's approved rates.
Right.
They missed a deadline, which I think was what, might have been January 31 or something.
Yeah, these,
Or whatever it might have been.
yeah, these are for the exemptions for the next go around.
Right, so
starting
it's
for fiscal
prospective.
25.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Ms. Allard.
Thank you. Can you please just clarify, the additional veterans exemption, is that just opening the pool of qualified individuals, or is there a second exemption that one can qualify for if they were of a certain age and also a veteran?
Yeah, you, because this is just the elderly credit
Because
program.
Was involved with ordinance review. Sorry, Jim.
Nope, sure.
The veterans exemption, because of actions that the council took last year, the veterans exemption credits are, income limits are tied to this tax program. So every time these income limits or ranges are changed, it automatically increases the limits for the veterans program.
Okay,
So they're tied together.
thank you.
Mr. Jinks.
But in terms of the marketing of the program, do we mention this when we send out our tax bills to residents? Is there an information piece in there about this program?
Don't believe there is. Yeah, but I want to double check.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that might be a good way to reach people, maybe a few more people with it. Thanks.
Sure. Something to check on, yeah.
Any other questions?
Jim.
Mr. Veliver.
Just following up on Mr. Jinks's question, if we could do that, can we obviously make sure that we make sure that, sort of re-inform the people who may be already on the program, but also is there a way to figure out who is eligible for that program, like age-wise or what, if there is obviously if you have younger people who may not qualify, maybe you don't have to, and, maybe just when you're stuffing the tax bills, you're not going to worry about that. But, as far as whether you're going to make, oh, well, wait, these people couldn't apply, so don't put it in. But I was just wondering if there's a way to at least focus on getting notice to the people who could qualify, with their tax bill. But is that may be, maybe just easier just to send it to everybody. So,
Yeah. I think it's a little hard because we don't know their income.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
don't know their
Right. That's true. So it may not necessarily be tied to their age, but I was just curious if we're.
I think, the tax bill, if there's a way to put a notice on the tax bill, that might have some potential.
Yeah, you certainly can. I think for the tax bill for July, just knowing that you're already too late for that tax year is one problem with putting it on that tax bill, but you can notify people for the subsequent year that you're eligible, if you are eligible, to keep an eye out for the program and apply the following January or February. But no, it's a point well taken. Again, we're all good ideas, and we'll certainly continue to try to promote it as we did last year as well.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Item N is the appointment, or in this case, reappointment of town historian, Mr. Wolf.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 011624-13. Be it resolved that the town council adopts the following guidelines to clarify the term, duties, and responsibilities of the volunteer town historian. Number one, the appointment of the town historian is a 2-year term. The appointment is to be made after the election of the town council and is effective February 1st through January 31st. Number two, All historical artifacts given to the town historian are the property of the town of Cheshire and shall be turned over to the town Board of Education or Historical Society at the discretion of the town manager. Number 3, the town historian will provide the town council with an annual list of key priorities. Be it further resolved that pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, Section 7-1485D, the town council appoints Diana Calabro of 1731 Peck Lane as the Cheshire Town Historian for the term from present to January 31st, 2026.
Second from Mr. Walsh. Thank you. Questions regarding the reappointment? Yes, Mr. Slocum.
I think it's a terrific appointment, but it's Diane, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
even though you read correctly, it's Diane Calabro. Certainly not your fault.
Any other questions or comments? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. And now that we've got that done, I will read a letter that I received yesterday. It says, "Dear council members, if this is being read to you, then please understand that I was not comfortable driving to the meeting tonight. It is my honor and pleasure to be appointed to the position of town historian for the coming year. I'm looking forward to continuing my exploration into our town's 20th century history. In the past year, I've looked forward to changing out the town hall lobby display case. I've received a number of positive comments. The current display celebrates the 50th anniversary of artwork by one of our local gems, Tony Falcone. I also participated in the 2023 St. Peter's MLK Children's Walk, as I did yesterday. Ball and socket arts projects and programs, including building a replica gingerbread house of the site with the help of my very patient husband and a stunning design team. I led a number of Cheshire Trail Trekker walks, most notably a walk about the life of Cheshire architect Alice Washburn. There were numerous talks and tables set up at various locations: the Cheshire Senior Center, the Cheshire Grange, the Historical Society. It's funny where the universe takes you. I toured Normandy Beach last May. Last September, Ron Gagliardi gave me a shoebox of letters that Paul Bowman found when the Plaza block was torn down to make way for the Rite Aid in 2011. I transcribed almost 250 letters from young servicemen and servicewomen who were patrons of Heath's Luncheonette in the early 1940s. Charlie and Theda Heath had a running correspondence with these young people, sending them letters from home, Christmas and birthday cards, and these young military individuals sent back their replies, including Army Private E.B. Buddy Brush, who was sent out on D-Day +1 and sustained shrapnel injuries. He wrote he had seen hell. Cheshire young people were sent all over the globe. These letters will take up more of my time in 2024. I'd welcome any suggestions as to what next steps to take with these letters. Thank you again for your support and for this opportunity. With warm regards, Diane Calabro. Congratulations, Diane. We look forward to what great things you will do in the next term. Thank you. Which brings us to O, P, and Q, which we will tackle after our executive session this evening. So that brings us to number 9, Mr. Kimball, the town manager's report.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A pretty brief report to this month, but some noteworthy items. Up first, the Cheshire Public Library's 2024 Winter Reading Challenge has kicked off this month. Kick off the new year with a Winter Reading Challenge. Kids and adults of all ages are invited to join this online reading program with chances to win prizes from now till February 29th. You will earn points for reading and completing special missions. Once you reach a certain number of points, you'll get a completion prize and you're entered in your age group's grand prize raffle. So sign up at the link provided or visit the library in person. I know I've passed along this notice to the council previously, but for the public, I'm very pleased to formally announce that I promoted our acting assistant superintendent, Dave Milano, to be our permanent water pollution control department superintendent effective January 1st. Dave has proven himself to be an excellent addition to Cheshire's WPC team. Since joining us in April of 2022, after previously working for the Southington Water Pollution Control Department, he holds a Class 3 wastewater operator's license and has achieved the required in-charge time to serve as our superintendent and sit for the highest Class 4 exam later this month. Dave has earned the trust and respect of all of our town staff and our Water Pollution Control Authority members, and has improved our preventative maintenance, operational processes, strategic planning, and emergency responsiveness significantly since joining our team really less than 2 years ago. I also want to thank John Cronin, who has served as our acting superintendent since the departure of Scott Hallier, and he's consistently supported Dave's transition and growth within the department. And Dave is having a particularly eventful month of January. In addition to this well-deserved promotion, he is going to be recognized at the 2024 New England Water Environment Association Conference in Boston this month. He will receive the 2023 Connecticut Operator of the Year Award, and he and his wife just welcomed their first child, Carmela, last week. So big January for Dave Milano, but congratulations. Moving on, please be sure to read the economic development update in your packet. This month actually kind of has kind of a 2023 year in review, a lot of great recap. Amazing how many things have happened over just the last 12 months for those that had a chance to read it. Of particular note, 2023 saw two of the largest property transactions in the town's history: 475 Nodder Drive in April, selling for $25.25 million, and 181 West Johnson, selling for $39 million. Additionally, Bizzuto's is now the largest privately held company in Greater Hartford, with 3,500 employees and one of the top 20 employers in Connecticut. And also Whole Foods, Northeast Distribution, and Macy's by Mail increased their reported employment numbers significantly over the year. And then again, maybe appropriate for today, but I wanted to include some compliments we don't always receive, but I know our Public Works Department and really all of our town staff definitely appreciate when folks take time out of their schedule to pay a compliment. Maybe it's been because we've been a couple of years without significant snow. And I will say our folks did a fantastic job with the early snowstorm a couple weeks ago, or almost, I guess, just about a week ago. But we've had a number of new folks on staff who hadn't experienced a full snowstorm to plow. Some of our maintainers hadn't, that were hired in the last year or prior to last winter. This was their first real experience, but everyone did a wonderful job. And you'll see just some compliments that I've pasted in here that were forwarded to me from the Public Works Department, a number of items that were entered into our iWork system, and also just some emails sent along. So I won't read them all, but just wanted to pass those along. And again, just maybe particularly appropriate on tonight, appreciate all the hard work our incredible staff of the Public Works Department do throughout the winter, in particular, to make sure our roads are safe and in good care for people. And storms like this can be really challenging when it changes precipitation types, 3 different times on you. So that actually completes the town manager report this month.
Questions for Mr. Kimball, Mr. Veliber?
Yes, just a quick question. Someone asked me this, and I wasn't sure. I think we've talked about it, the skating rink. Is that the ice skating rink? Do we set that up? I mean, we haven't had that in a while, right?
So
not set up at Mixville?
That long. So right, no, it's been at Bartlam Park for the last few years up until last winter. We did not set it up last winter for 2 reasons. One was the ongoing construction at Bartlam Park. That parking where we were setting it up, the gravel lot behind the pavilion, kind of closer to the pool, towards the old lacrosse fields, was needed as we've taken some parking offline as the high school students are parking somewhat in those areas. And so it also then coincided with a winter that we couldn't really have enough sustained cold weather for a ice rink. I met with Mrs. Skeena last year in advance to kind of talk that through with her and talk about sort of the genesis of some of our longer term plans that I know we've been discussing at the council level that informed the Mixville Park proposal. That's an area where Greg Skeena grew up actually skating at Mixville Park. There's a bench memorializing him there. And again, that's where the temporary ice rink was first purchased with donations from the Skeena family. It hasn't worked well at Bartlam Park, and I think especially with the new development down there and the new construction, it's just not a great spot to take up parking for that. And it's been somewhat of a problematic temporary rink. It doesn't stay well. The every year the liner seems to develop cracks and things. It's just not a perfect solution. But what you've seen in the Mixville Master Plan is a proposal for an area, kind of a permanent ice rink area that can be flooded in the winter and when the temperatures support, kind of a more natural ice rink, but intentionally constructed near the parking lot at Mixville. And I think the plan would be to sort of name and designate that the Greg Skeena Memorial Ice Rink, kind of in keeping with the original mission. So there won't be an ice rink this winter for the same reasons. There's still the construction and limitations at Barlam Park. But the work, again, the design and all the approvals are done for the Mixville Master Plan construction projects, including the ice rink. And some of that work we hope to perform in-house when the weather allows this spring. So the hope would be have that completed ideally before next winter.
Thank you.
Sorry, long answer there, but that's it.
Any other questions? Brings us to the reports of committees of the council, chairman's reports, starting to my left, Ms. Kramer.
Planning has personnel has nothing to report.
Mr. Wolf,
Nothing to report.
Ms. Allard,
Nothing to report.
Mr. Jinks, Ms. Pearson.
Solid waste, or I guess sustainability, formerly solid waste. did
Officially,
meet.
officially,
Our
yes.
new official report.
For the first time.
Met January 4th. We discussed a number of items. Chapman Elementary School has launched their food diversion pilot, their food waste diversion pilot. So I was in attendance at that along with Pam Roach, who is a member of our Coalition for Sustainable Cheshire, to Don's point that I know there are a number of sustainability groups. I know it can get confusing. And that is something I think we can work on in terms of our sustainability team in town, in terms of rethinking names. Just want to shout out and thank Erica Biagatti for the great work she did in launching that program pilot, and the entire Cheshire Public School District for launching that program. And hopefully that's something that we will look to expand across the school district as we look to reduce food waste costs in our town. We also talked a little bit about the AJ Waste contract, which will be expiring in June of 2025. We also talked a little bit about bulky waste and considering alternatives to bulky waste collection in our community. And finally, we talked about working with the Chamber of Commerce and identifying businesses in town that engage in hazardous waste collection and recycling. So I've contacted Yetta, and she is working on with us, and she'll be meeting with her board to see if that's something that the Chamber of Commerce is interested in working with the town with. And that's it.
Thank you. I have the referral of indigenous and non-invasive plants policy to your sustainability committee for consideration, as well as the referral of sewer permit fee ordinance to the ordinance review committee. And I'm gonna, because it's here, I'm gonna take advantage of B, which is miscellaneous, and say that yesterday I had the opportunity to participate in the Martin Luther King Jr. Children's Walk that was held in Cheshire, starting at St. Peter's Church. Just wanted to give a thank you to not only St. Peter's Church, our police department for the assistance they provided, as well as thanking the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities with the state of Connecticut, which put the whole thing on. This was the third year that they had the walk. It was incredibly well attended, and I was honored to be a very small part of that. So, moving to item 11, which is appointments. We'll start with liaison reports, starting to my left with Ms. Kramer.
I believe you have a letter from Karen.
I do. Dated January 16th, 2024, dear Cheshire Town Council, and this was the letter alluded to by Mr. Shrum during our public comment at the kickoff of the evening. The Cheshire Environment Commission's purpose is to help conserve local natural resources and promote the responsible use of publicly owned open space. In July 2020, in partnership with the Cheshire Land Trust and the Regional Water Authority, the town purchased 45 acres of open space on Fen Road, which included a significant section of the Mill River. The property had been a farm for the Werner Moran family since the late 1890s and shares a long boundary with Cheshire's 184-acre De Dominicus Preserve. One of the main reasons for purchasing the Fen property was to provide safe access to De Dominicus, our largest and best loved open space parcel. However, De Dominicus suffers from a lack of parking since the main trailhead is along Old Lane, which is characterized by steep grades and poor sightlines. Safe and convenient access to De Dominicus could be had from Fen Road if a simple bridge is constructed over the Mill River. There is adequate parking on the Fen parcel, and a walk across a bridge to De Dominicus would be short. At our January meeting, the Environment Commission voted unanimously to request that the council initiate the construction of a bridge at Fen. The town has residual ARPA funds. Using these funds to create safe access to the bigger part of the Fen parcel, as well as the entire De Dominicus Preserve, would be a wonderful thing to do for our town. These readily available funds will get this project done quickly, as opposed to putting it through the capital budget process that could delay completion for a year or even longer. Our commission urges you to build the bridge and make it easier and safer to use one of our new open spaces and one of our older open spaces at the same time. Thank you, Karen Schnitzer, Chair, Environment Commission. Anything else, Ms. Kramer?
I believe she also mentioned the quality of the bridge as to pay some attention to who's using it, whether it's just a footbridge or if there's horses being used to traverse the bridge. And as far as I know, that's where we are.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf.
Nothing to report.
Ms. Allard?
No report.
Mr. Jenks?
Economic Development Commission met this morning, and they are working on a proposal to show us having to do with the $400,000 grant monies that we received from the state recently. Andrew and the subcommittee is putting together a number of items for that $400,000. They'll present that to us, I believe, at our February meeting. And Andrew also mentioned this morning that I think 10 or 12 of the top employers in Cheshire had all increased their employment from last year to this year, with the exception of one that I'm not going to name because I can't remember the name of it. But business is good in Cheshire, as we all know.
Ms. Pearson?
No report.
Mr. Slocum?
No report.
Mr. Walsh?
I do have a report because I took over the liaison for the beautification.
Always
Okay.
good for a report.
Always good for a report.
Exactly.
They met last week. They were looking over the plans for the North End School plantings. Now they had a little bit of an issue because the map that they were looking at had topography on it, and it was a little confusing there was a lot of stuff there for them to really separate it all out, but they're trying to keep the farming aspect over there, and certain plantings that they want, and where the signage is going to go, what kind of plantings, they want to keep it like more of a meadow in the front. So there's a lot of things that they're discussing there. They also had a pretty good discussion, and I know Mr. Jenks brought this up a month or so ago, about the tree selection along Route 10. And they are really taking the time to make sure they get the right trees. They're actually going to be talking with some of the businesses where these trees will be planted, so that they make sure that they're okay with them. They have to make sure they're not going to interfere with any power lines or all that. But it's a good group of people, and I think they really are taking their job seriously, and I think it's good. And Fair Rent Commission is meeting tomorrow night, so I will be there and have a report for that. Thursday night. I don't know what day today is.
Yeah, it's Thursday, yes.
Throw that Monday in there.
Throw Florida in.
I know, yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Moving on to appointments to boards and commissions, we're going to do this kind of in a double take tonight. We're going to do any appointments to boards and commissions for terms that do not, or that have already expired prior to the end of the year. And then we'll take any of the appointments that expire on January 31st, we will do in our February meeting. So with that in mind, Mr. Wolf, do you have any appointments for us this evening?
I do have some appointments. The first is appointing Frank Vumbeck Jr. to the Public Safety Commission. That fills the vacancy that I left, Greg Wolf. The term is 1/11/22 to 1/31/24, so just be a quick one. And he's a Democrat. Second is Alexandra Mealy to the Youth and Human Services Commission. Fills the vacancy of, I just have Gunther is the name. Term is 1/16/24 to 1/31/26. She's also a Democrat. And we have John Parasino to the Park and Recreation Committee, filling the vacancy of Fiona Pearson. Term of office is 1/16/24 to 1/31/25. He is a Democrat. And finally, I have Neelan Kathir, is the youth representative to the Youth and Human Services Committee. And the term is 2/1/24 to 1/31/25, and there is no political affiliation, sir. And that's it.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Veliber.
I do have, I've just a point of clarification as the former liaison to the Youth and Human Services Committee. Just a question for you, Mr. Wolf. Which position is he filling? Is he a high school representative? Is he a Dodd? What?
Yes, the last one was.
Okay. Okay, so he's the high school representative. Okay.
He's the youth representative. to the-
Right, but there's two high school, two Dodd, and one non-Cheshire high school. Yeah. So, okay. Just want to make sure. So he fits in that Cheshire high school category. Thank you.
And that was brought to us by Director Picarello. Yeah.
I'd asked her to make sure that, those people were updated because they're no longer just a sort of, hey, get in there. They're actually appointed by the council.
Exactly. Based on that, did you have any,
I do, but you want to take a vote on these first?
yeah, we can do that. All those in favor? The 4 appointments pass unanimously. Mr. Veliber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, notwithstanding the recent change on the council, town service should be based on best interest and excellent service. And a number of our currently serving board and commission members, many of whom have served effectively and faithfully for many years, some even decades, would like to be reappointed. As one of our serving members even asked to be reappointed here tonight. These people have been serving and are ready, willing, and able to continue that service. Their attendance and dedication is very important, and attendance at those meetings is very important as well. And with that, I'd like to place in the nomination 17 reappointments. For the Beautification Committee, Jessica Fausto, William Bonaminio, William Meyerjack, and Jessica Fisher, all for a term starting 1/31/24.
I'd like to place a motion to table this to next meeting, since these are all appointments that are expiring at the end of the month.
Right? Oh,
Second.
Okay. Do you want
And
to
a
finish
second
reading
from
this
Ms.
list at
Pearson.
all, or?
What's that?
So do you want to finish reading this list at all, or?
I don't think there's a need to, unless you have any whose terms have already expired.
Right.
I assume these would all
be
terms that
reappointments
will
starting
expire on 1/31/24.
Correct.
Yeah, then we'll hold those until the February meeting, but we have a table and a motion to table in a second. So we'll take a vote on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Mr. Veliber, Mr. Walsh, and Mr. Slocum opposed. Motion passes by a 6-3 count. With that, Mr. D'Onofrio, anything for the town attorney's report?
Nothing for public session. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Council communication, I read the letter from Ms. Schnitzer, nothing from miscellaneous. Yes, sure.
To the Town Council Chairman Peter Talbot and my council colleagues, in a few short weeks, I will mark the 10th anniversary of the passing of my wife, Kristen, of 38 years. I have been wedded to this town for 20 years. I've been elected 10 times, serving on the Town Council for 16 years, 8 of those as its chairman. There is some serious perspective and very thoughtful consideration in reaching my decision to resign from the Cheshire Town Council effective January 17, 2024. I thank the voters who have supported me throughout my service with all my heart. I am thankful to all the colleagues I have had the pleasure to serve with. And finally, I thank all the hardworking members of the town government and the education department, and most singularly, the town manager's office for all their great work. As this council takes on hundreds of hours they must devote to Cheshire citizens over the next 2 years, I wish you, Chairman Mr. Talbot, and the council, of course, the best of fortune as you make these important decisions on behalf of our fellow Cheshire residents. I do sincerely love Cheshire, but it's time to refocus my time on family, friends, and some long overdue travel plans. I have a copy too for the town clerk. It will be my form of resignation, whether it's too long for her or not. Thank you so much, and I will excuse myself because you'll be moving into executive session, and that's new business.
Well, Mr. Slocum, before you go, I do want to say, first of all, I'm saddened by this. We have served together, as I mentioned, one of the other meetings for a dozen years, and you have a longer service record than that as well. You've served on planning and zoning, I know, and have been outstanding member of and an outstanding elected official for this community for decades. So I sincerely thank you for your service. I hope that we can have you back to be formally recognized by all of the peers, and frankly, I think before I can put words together, this needs to sink in a little bit. But
I do apologize for that. I've been talking about this for 2 election cycles, and I could have more responsibly bitten the bullet prior to an election, but strategery hasn't always been my best suit, perhaps. So with that, I just, as I said, did some soul searching and consideration. And I thank all of you again, sincerely. And God bless Cheshire and everyone that works on their behalf.
thank you, Mr. And again, I hope you will rejoin us to be formally recognized. It is certainly fitting and appropriate. So.
It's rare to see him surprised.
All right, with that, we will, I'll call for a motion to go into executive session for pending litigation and pending claims, to include, I see Mr. Jascott sitting down, so he will be included, as will Ms. Talbot, Ms. Shepherd, Mr. D'Onofrio, and Mr. Kimball. And second by Mr. Velaber. All those in favor? We are officially in executive session. There will be action taken when we come out.